played hide and seek for hours, raised our shadows among the pines. So offshore, playful and free, without a care in the world. I was one rich little girl, daydreamer, kidnap me, take me back, all the way back to them days, running around in a gown and a crown, barefoot. No mistake ever kept me late. We spent summers catching fireflies and winters on our skates. One big smile across my face. We used to dance our way to church on Sundays. Mama set the pace. Daydreamer, kidnap me, take me back, all the way back to them days, running around in a gown and a crown, barefoot.
Rodney, how are you? Happy Tuesday.
I, I couldn't be better, Andy. How are you doing?
I'm good. A friend of mine thought I was smoking drugs on this thing. I'm, I'm kidding. For anybody, it's just a joke. I vape. I don't smoke, but I do vape, and some people think it's other stuff. It's not.
Hey, they can put anything in those cartridges now. I hear.
They can, they can. Of course, and anybody that knows me from my YouTube channel knows I'm 14, almost 14 years sober now. So any of that other stuff wouldn't work for me, or I probably wouldn't be home for Christmas. It's one of those deals.
I hear you, man. Yeah,
I see you
I'm.
next spring.
Yeah, I've
Oh
got a.
man.
I've got a. What is a sophomore in college at
Yeah.
UT and a sophomore at Page High School here in Tennessee, and I'm glad it's not legal here. And then, they can make it legal after my kids get older if they want to. That's all I got. I've got to worry about raising mine. That's it. So.
Yeah, it's a thing. Well,
How do
I've
we
got
even
a
get
thing.
talking about this?
How did we? Because I thought it was funny that you thought I was smoking pot.
Yeah, it sounds like it's
Hey,
hitting a
YouTube,
bone
if
on
you're
that thing.
listening, I'm not. I'm
Yeah.
not. It's strictly menthol and nicotine. So I mean, I'm good on that. So things have changed in the market here. I mean, things continue to change pretty dramatically. And anybody that watches Rodney and I, we don't take a negative approach or a positive approach. We try to be positive, of course, but we just try to tell it kind of as we see it, and may or may not agree with each other or the news, right? So we're seeing a lot of things change, and anything jump out that you want to mention.
Yeah, if you
That's
want to share my screen here, we got
You got it. Here we come.
today's a good day for our show just to show you the volatility in the market. You see, if you want to look at today, this is today, and you can look at the times, 9:30, 10, 10:30, 11, and all the changes. But that 63 means it's gotten better by 63 basis points today. That's a pretty big jump for improvement today. In which, when you see this go up, typically you're seeing this one go down. Um, in this
Meaning,
one,
meaning rates, right? When you say this one go
correct,
down, you
yes.
mean okay.
This is the mortgage-backed security
Mm-hmm.
mortgage bonds, and then right here is just a 1 month. So as it goes down, that means rates are getting better. You see how it's kind of getting better right there, but it
Yes.
peaks right, peaks and then starts getting better. But the big thing is, year after, from a year. This is a year look at it.
Mean looking back a year.
Looking back a year,
Okay.
thank you. Um, you can see what it's done. It's just you know plummeted as far as
Man,
going from what rate was this at the time. This rate was
is it
let's
two
see
point
here.
three nine something like that?
Yeah, I'm trying to see how much. Yeah, up here it's 5.5% is basically paying, like 111, and then you go down here and 5.5%. You're going to pay 4 or 5 points just to get it.
Yeah.
So you see the difference. I mean, you're paying 4.5 points to get it versus you getting 11.5 points here. Now that
Mm.
ain't how they did the rates, of course. That's just basically the same, comparing the rate at the same price today. That ain't really how it does, but it's just gone. You can see it's gone up terribly over the last year.
Yeah. And that's it's and
Right.
what's interesting though is that the housing market, despite all of that, which is looks if you look at it as a graph that you're thinking bad, but the housing market itself is still pretty healthy. I mean, but it's just doing what it's got to do to adjust for all the changes. I think what strikes me is how sales home sales have plummeted this last couple of weeks. I mean, they've tanked. It's like a 10-year low
Mm-hmm.
on home
On
sales.
right, yeah. You know, I think it just has a lot to do with people getting adjusted.
Yeah,
Um, when just a year ago, the rates were 2% lower.
yeah,
House prices were still high, but when you say, okay, heck, even 5.5% was high. I mean, people are still thinking 3.5%, 4%. So I think there's an adjustment period. I think people have to get adjusted to the new reality of what rates are.
yeah. The new
And
normal.
yeah, the new normal, exactly. And
Mm,
once they get comfortable with that and thinking, okay, well, 7% is still better than 100% of rental, right?
yeah, yeah,
If you look 5 years down the road and you're plus, 50 or 100,000 in equity from your home, that's a lot better than you were 5 years prior.
yeah,
So I think once the people get used to the rate now, I say that, but what I'm concerned about is how's inflation affecting people's pocketbooks, right? That should make a determination. And then I think the economy or the government is trying to curb inflation by slowing down the economy, and potential job losses are going to come about. And when that happens, of course, buying a house needs to be put on back burner for, say, somebody who's not comfortable with their job, right?
right.
So, I see, people start getting used to these rates. I see a purchase market opening back up, and because people realize, hey, maybe 3 or 4 years before I refinance this or get rid of it, but it's just what it is today, and it's better to buy a house today. If they get to
Yeah.
that point.
Well, and I've seen that as a as being around for a minute, and I know for sure you have. I've seen rates bounce around and from high to low. And what I've seen happen is that people will, yes, 7 is high, but 6.5 is less. And people get, like you said, they're used to it. And, when you think about 2 or 3%, we all start to think, well, that's the old days. This is the new day. And best I can get is 5.5 or 6 or 4, whatever the number is. You become acclimated to that, just exactly like you're saying. And the buyer pool will come back. I'm convinced. I think I'm right about this, that the holidays typically slow things down. Just,
Mhm.
we're like 2 minutes away from, the beginning of November is essentially Thanksgiving Day for a month, in people's head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when you're talking about, and I wanted to touch on a couple of things too, like I always put you on the hot seat. Um, in terms of buyers, there's plenty of buyers out there, and I think this is going to be good news for some and maybe not great news for others. But as the economics tighten up and inflation is just tough and the rates are challenging, that sort of stuff. But the people who are, and I don't know what this means exactly, it's different for everybody, that's prepared, they're still
Mhm.
prepared. The people that are prepared to buy a house 4 months ago, meaning they've got their resources, they've got their savings, they've, all of that, they're still ready to go even today. I think the people that are getting pushed out, and this is on the news a lot, is that affordability factor the gap has gotten bigger.
Yes.
There's, I call them fringy people, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but just on the verge of in and out, you know. Um, that's just, and that's just the nature of the beast that we're in. That's the way I see it.
Let
It's the
me.
next.
I want to throw something in. It's a totally a. I don't know what you call it, but just since it's our show, I guess I can throw my opinion out here.
You betcha.
We have when I started when I bought my first house, I remember one of the things I was thinking about was I'd heard something or read something that I thought fit my personality pretty good was I want to have the nicest house I can have. But what that meant for me is that my car in the driveway was probably going to be a piece of junk. But today, it's like a lot of people start out with this $600, $700, $800 car payment that I just wasn't, me as a first time home buyer, I wasn't, I didn't have that. I didn't ever think that I was crazy enough to have that car payment when I was first starting my career. But it
Mm.
seems like that the car payment for us is causing a little bit of an issue for people's debt ratios in line because they're coming to me now. First time home buyers, I feel like, are coming in with a hefty car note because cars are so expensive, and people with the mindset that they should drive a $75,000 car with their first job, or they're coming in with other debt that like phone bills. I didn't have a phone bill in you know
Yeah.
when I bought my
Yeah.
first house. But all these bills that the younger crowd has now, starting out there as a first time home buyer, is more.
Yeah.
Uh, so these rates have really, done their number with the first time home buyers, as we talked about 100 times. So I just thought that was from my perspective, kind of like the customers I'm seeing. I want to I want to tell my young homeowner, like, listen, don't go house poor, but forget about all this other debt. Put that piece of junk car in the driveway and buy the nicest house you can buy. I'm not telling you to get your front ratio out of line, but still, I would have that mindset. It's a better mindset long term than people spending money and can't afford them and having to wait another couple of years because they got a $600, $700, $800 car payment.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. That's
Well,
it's just different.
and I couldn't agree with you more. That's really well said. I mean, I happen to be friends with Dave Ramsey, so you know where I'm going with that. What does he say? Live like nobody else now, so you can live like nobody else does later. And it's an
If
instant.
yeah,
No, go ahead.
if you just follow, 75% or 50% of what Dave Ramsey does, you're going to financially be really, should take care of yourself. The thing I don't agree with, and I'll tell you this right here, maybe you can give me some insight on this. I had an LO coming in today that she has a customer that's been on the fence about this rate bubble.
Hmm.
She's a single mom, has 3 kids. Okay, so obviously the affordability of the house, she can still qualify today at today's rates, and but she's hesitant because it's not what it was, right? It's not the same payment as it was 9 months ago, a year ago, whatever. And I told that LO, I said, you've got a single mom with 3 kids. I said, how? I said, ask them this, because one, what would it mean for her to be in the house with her children? First of all, that to me, that's an important question. Is like, what would it mean for you to own your own home, get out from under a renting situation, and have your family protected at least from rising rents? And then two, um, just you're comparing that interest rate that's no longer available, but you're renting at 100%. You know, that's 100% interest, in my opinion, with that rent.
Hmm.
Now the task is, Andy, is she if you encourage her to buy or think it's wise for her to buy right now. Uh, I'm just thinking about Thanksgiving and Christmas in her own home, right? That's what I'm thinking about.
Hmm.
But would you recommend her waiting another 6 months or something? And okay, so the rates are projected maybe to go to 8%. And then house pricing, because house pricing, that article, I think we're going to talk about house prices fell 1.5% month over month.
Right. Well, that's
Um,
projected for September next year, right? That's
right.
correct.
So I'm like, if she goes out and buys a $300,000 house today,
Yeah.
it loses 2% over the next year. It's still worth 294. So she's really not upside down in, assuming, she put, just a little bit down. But I'm thinking 5 years down the road. You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking, one, she don't have to sign a new lease that could potentially go up.
Right.
And two, she just needs to manage that debt like anything else. Soon as a better deal comes available for her to refinance and it makes sense, then that's what she may want to do. And then another 5 years down the road, she may want to put this thing on a 15-year and get it paid off. That's kind of my plan. What would your suggestion be for that right now?
That's an excellent question. Here's what my take is, and this hasn't varied ever in years. If somebody's prepared, we were talking about just a minute ago, if somebody's financially prepared to buy, if they have a need, they've got family, they've got whatever the circumstance might be, they're stable, they like their job, it's important. Is their job sound? Because these days there's some things changing in the job market too. But if she's stable job-wise, if she likes your job, if she's financially prepared with the resources and that sort of thing, my advice is going to be absolutely, because as a real estate person, I have to look at it long term. It's only recently that people were thinking buying a house and in 6 months you make $20,000 or $30,000. That's only been the last year and a half, which is nonsense. That's not healthy and it's not normal. And that's what's put us, I think, where we are is that, right? That ability. So I would say absolutely, if you're financially prepared, it's as simple as that. Because long term, you're going to be number one. And there was a really good article. Let me pop over to it. Maybe you saw this in Keeping Current Matters. It's the emotional and non-financial benefits of home ownership. But you bet, I would.
Yes.
If she's prepared. Because all of a sudden, even at a high rate, this is just my opinion, you've got stability. There's other things can change, like I don't know, other bills, food bills maybe would vary. But you go from every year the rent goes up, or if maybe more frequently, I don't know, haven't rented in a long time. But at least, your monthly payment for mortgage is stable, except for taxes, right? So that's the short answer is yes, I would if she's prepared. That's it.
Good. Well, good. I mean, because it's always, and this is a recent phenomenon for me too, is to think about would I recommend somebody buying right now over the fear of it going backwards a percent or two. But I'm kind of long term thinking as well. It's like that's what I'm thinking is like 5 years, 5 years. 5 years she's going to be making money on that house. In 2 years she's going to have protected herself from at least probably one, possibly two rent increases. I mean.
Yeah.
So that alone gives yourself a raise, if you start out a little bit higher where you wanted to, because today's rates are bad. But I would too. I would just think the emotional benefit from having your family in a house for Thanksgiving and Christmas would outweigh the the hurt feelings of my interest rate stinks now compared to what it was a year ago.
Yeah.
So
well, and we've both been around long enough that we can't help but have a long-term historical look at things. Prior to 2019, let's say, we went through the crash in 08 and it took 10 years for people to recover value, right? It was pretty close to 10 years. But in the end, the people that hung in there, even after I know people that bought in 08, sorry.
yeah.
And there was people that bought in, 2010, did a little bit better. They started at a lower point. But in the end, in 2016, 2017, those people were looking really good. This is prior to the craziness here the last couple of years. And you have to look at it long term, because a house isn't anything other than a long-term investment. At least otherwise, man, it's like trying to watch the stock market every day. You get an ulcer and you can't sleep, you know?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
what
You
it,
just, yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, if I had a chance to go back, I'd buy every house I could in 2008. I wish I
oh
could
man.
buy, I wish I'd bought 1,000 of them. And that's the, we're describing it like right now. It could be we don't know what the future holds, but we're describing it like right now. It could be a bad time to buy,
Yeah.
but when you
Yeah.
go 10 years down the road, it's like I'd buy every house I could right now.
And the only thing that makes people think that it's a bad time is really two things. We're seeing the prices, they're still high, but they're coming down. And that's what, we'll talk about the year over year, which seems like, okay, they're still up 13 or 14%, which is crazy high, but it's not 20% like it was 4 months ago versus
Mhm.
month over month where they're starting to dip. Projections is going to be increase of 1.5% over the next year. Negative growth. Well, will it stay there? That's 1 month's projection. Talk to me in November,
Yeah.
talk to me in February. That's when things will start. I think the smoke will clear. I'm telling you, the holidays mess
Yeah. What are
with
you
all
talking about?
they mess with all the metrics.
We
They
could,
just
yeah. I mean, it could change so bad. I mean, we could have another show in 3 hours after this one about a different market.
absolutely new information.
Yeah.
But I mean, when somebody's thinking about a bad rate, and I respect this, but if you're going to recover a point or a point and a half, you're the calculator guy. I'm not. But that's not that. It's not a dramatic difference in dollars. And if the rates moderate in the next year and a half or two, if you can refinance, wisely, there's smart and dumb ways to do that. I imagine it's just worth it. It's just for me and anybody that I know. Once they settle in and see that stable payment, it's emotionally satisfying because you've got something that's yours.
Yeah. Yeah. I
That's
think
all.
last week I talked about how I felt first time I drove in my first house, pulled in my
Mm-hmm.
own driveway. It's a cool feeling.
It is cool. So then leads us to my first question for you, if you don't mind. And I won't put you on the spot too much because we actually covered one of them that I was going to talk about was how to make a buy versus rent decision. I think we've talked about that already. That's really cool.
Let's see here. I'm trying to see if I've got next week. If you tell me, I can put together a buy versus rent, or you want to see if we can do one with my system here?
Well, let's get that ready for next week.
Okay.
And I think that, and then we'll advertise it that way because that's got to be a common question these days. So, if that's okay, is that all right?
Oh, 100%. Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Then I was reading an article on CNBC, which is a real good place for real estate information, and it says demand for riskier home loans is high as interest rates soar. Are you seeing that? The riskier stuff, was that what you were addressing earlier, or am I missing something?
No, I'm assuming when somebody says riskier stuff, I am assuming I'm putting everything that riskier stuff in a bucket of what's called non QM, meaning when after the '08 crash, the government come out and said, if you're going to do a mortgage loan and it's included in mortgage backed securities, like somebody could invest in this, um, it has to be underwritten and basically or originated from start to finish in a certain manner with certain things in place, appraisal things, underwriting things, things like that. So the qualified mortgages have really done its job in making protecting everybody from a bunch of foreclosures because of the bad loan stuff. Um, Now, as the market improved, things gone crazy, the need for those products have risen their head, and that stuff is back out there. bank statement loans, they call them, things like that. They what we term as non-qualified. I call them they're just non-QM loans because they're
Right.
not going to Fannie or Freddie or Ginnie or whoever. So those loans are just basically Wall Street has investors that says we got so much money, we want to put them in mortgage, our own mortgage-backed securities or create these products that we can lend on and make some money. So that's what they're doing now. These things are coming back. But at least they don't go in our mortgage-backed security buckets. These are going to privately held funds.
Got it.
These big, they're just probably funded by everything under the sun.
Right.
Hedge funds and everything. So,
What you're
they're
saying, just
coming back.
let me just interject. Let me just ask a question because that's a really good point. Because they're not involved in the MBS or the mortgage-backed securities, if they blow up, it's those individual companies that take a hit instead of the entire economy based on mortgage-backed securities, right? Is that what you're getting
Yeah,
at?
we could, yes, we'll still, like, that company could suffer. That company, whoever's doing the lending, they could, or whoever sold them or serviced them,
Right.
they could have problems. But what it doesn't do, it doesn't crash our 401ks. It doesn't, it does, because you may have a piece of your 401k in the company that manages your 401k has it in mortgage-backed securities or whatever, so that the qualified mortgages are not going to take a hit like they did in '08. So yes, these products are coming out, and I'm not a big fan of them, to be honest, but they're out there.
Well, and that's just call it what it is. That's God bless America. I mean, if you've got a product and it's risky and you can sell it, there you go. I mean, I think that it runs along the lines of too much credit card usage, always wanting things now without being able to pay for it. I'm not being judgy, but
yeah, or I mean, a lot of the people who are using this are self-employed, and they're either avoiding paying taxes on their tax returns because they don't want to pay the taxes, or they're actually not making it, which is the bigger issue that I have. One, I pay my taxes, so obviously it'd be nice if everybody did theirs, but I don't care if somebody beats the government out of tax. I don't care about that. But what I do like is sustainable home ownership, meaning I like products that people can go and buy their house. They're not going to lose them like they did back in '08 because the mortgage terms weren't bad. And I never get this, Andy. Tell me why this is. Okay, let's say somebody comes in, you can't do a loan for them. Oh, but wait a minute. I can do the loan, but it's at a crappier rate. I'm going to give you 2% higher rate, and now I don't have to ask you for your pay stub because I'm putting you in this product. And your payment's higher, but you didn't qualify for this one with a good rate. So now you qualify for this one with even worse rate and a worse payment. But, that's my thing about it, is like, ugh, just kind of, well, I've never done those loans, right? I mean, I've never been in that market. So.
Right. And there's a lot of that. And it's I think that some people aren't aware of the damage that it can cause down the road. Maybe there's maybe a little financially naive, and again, I'm not judging,
Yeah.
But again, if somebody can sell it,
it's going to be sold. I mean, it's going to be sold. Yeah, I mean, if it's out there, people are going to use it, which is fine. Yeah, I mean, if I was, let's say, if I ran my business and I didn't pay taxes, or whatever, and I would be fine with that. Let's say, I'm going to go pay 8% instead of 5%, but I've saved $100,000 by not paying taxes. I should look at my mortgage payment and be like, ooh, I love that rate because that saved me $100,000 in taxes. Right?
Yeah. I think that the bottom line for me on that whole deal is that it's much more limited now back versus in '08 when can you breathe? Okay, here's a loan. They're not doing that.
Yes. Yes,
I mean, the way
and
that
that's a great
the
point because yeah, when it there's a difference between the products that are coming back and just now coming back or coming back for a year or so than what was out there in '08.
oh man, I
'08 was
mean,
'08 was crazy.
to this day, we still see and will see for the long future the good work that lenders and and I have to give credit where credit is due. The feds and the way that they arranged things to fix that problem, it sure looks fixed-ish to me. Anyway, I think that's really good news. I think that's really good news.
Yeah, a lot
Um,
of stuff that came through that as was terrible, but the QM part, I definitely I'm a fan of it for sure.
well, yeah, if people qualify because they actually qualify.
Yes,
That- I think that's what you're getting at.
sustainable
here's
home
a
ownership.
here's a little local thing that I thought this was kind of interesting. Pop this up here. I don't know how interesting it is, but I thought it was. Hang on. There we go. That was slow. These are the um, there's budget-minded people now, right? As we always are. But now there's 10 surprising up-and-coming real estate markets across the country that people are moving to. Remember, during the lockdown and everything, people were doing remote moves to places where it's warmer and you go outside and this, the sunshine stuff. Well, for us locally, one of the top 10 is Johnson City, Tennessee. Yay. Johnson City, Tennessee is one of the most attractive places for people to buy outside the area, predominantly coming from two sources: high cost metros and generally more expensive nearby cities. I just, I was proud of that.
Well, I was actually born not too far from that area, East Tennessee. I was born in Kingsport, moved to Nashville when I was 9. But that area up there has gotten a couple really good plants, I think, or at
Is that
least
right?
one. And of course, it's not Oracle or Ford or anything like that that we know they're building. I forgot what it was, but it was definitely a some stuff going on up there that was help driving that market because I have some LO friends in that area that we were discussing it because I'd seen that article earlier and I'd reached out to them. I'm like, hey, what's happening? So
Right.
that's cool stuff.
It is cool. I mean, it's just that people are very creative, and um, looking for a good lifestyle. And Johnson City might be it. There's another list of all of them, but I don't know anything about the other towns. Um,
Well, if you look at our state, if you look at the map, Johnson City is in the upper right hand corner of that
okay,
Tennessee. Uh, right on the Johnson City is right next to Bristol, which is also a city in Virginia. Half of Bristol's in Tennessee and Virginia, or both, maybe not half, but you
that
know what
where
I'm
the
saying.
races are, the Bristol
hmm
races.
Bristol, Tennessee, right? And there's a Bristol, there's a Bristol, Virginia as well. So um, that area is a kind of a little hopping area. It's a great area up there.
Can you see the mountains up in there? Are there mountains?
Yeah, I mean, when you're in Johnson City, you can go into Virginia, so you can get all the mountains you want. I mean, it's from right there, you're touching basically Virginia, Tennessee. You can almost ease into Carolinas from that upper right part of East Tennessee.
Well, being a Colorado guy, the mountains out here are different than what I'm used to in Colorado, but I love the mountains just in general. It makes my heart happy. So
Yeah,
let's
we call your Colorado mountains just some rolling hills with some scrub brushes on them, compared to the Great Smokies.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's that was Colorado. I was when I was younger. I've been out there a few times. It's unbelievable.
It's yeah, I've had a hankering to go back, not to move there, but to go fill my lungs with that mountain air, because there is nothing like it. Boy, are we off track. So the other thing I was looking at in keeping current matters is what's ahead for home prices, and that's where we had a real good article. We've got to find it here. Here we go. The housing market predictions that you and I were chatting about earlier, and a couple of things that we can climb before we finish up here. So on the mortgage rates, they're saying, is there a light at the end of this dark tunnel? And what I see, and then I want to hear your rebuttal on that. What I'm seeing when you read that is you're literally hearing both sides of the coin when they're talking about rates going up. Is that? I think that's what we've been saying, huh? Nobody knows.
Yes, definitely nobody knows, but I have kind of mentally prepared myself for the rates that are going to. I'm thinking from everything that I think and the way the market and economy is going and what I think the government's trying to do. I think they're probably going to get closer to 8% before they start getting better. That's my opinion. Now, I have some people I work with, some investors that we send loans to, and when I'm discussing certain pricing characteristics of these loans, they're talking about the way they're giving us the pricing for the loans is that they're preparing for a huge sell-off, meaning they don't think the loans that the loans that we do right now are going to be around. Hardly any time at all. That they're actually trying to prepare for, and I'm thinking anywhere between somewhere in a 6 to 60 day, 180 day mark, somewhere around there is that that's when they're predicting their prices are going to come back down, and all these loans that we're doing right now is going to pay off.
Got it.
So, but I don't really subscribe to that theory. I'm like, what? And maybe you can help me with this, Andy. You watch the numbers a lot. What is going to change the market that drives the mortgage rates down?
The inflation would have to improve. Period.
Well, inflation would have to get worse to cause a recession, I think, and they would want mortgage rates to pull us out of a recession. That's I may be backwards.
Well, no, I don't know that. I'm not an economist on this kind of thing, but
Ask Angie.
What I meant by my comment is, what I meant by the comment is a healthier economy, whatever that means. That's what I'm getting at. I have to actually think about I have to think about that.
See, I think a healthy economy hurts us because they can, we have a healthy economy, or we had one. The Fed is raising the interest rates up to slow the economy down. They want to slow the economy down. Isn't that correct? They want it to be more balanced. They want housing to be more balanced, meaning not this crazy seller market we've had. So they're halfway there, or 3/4 of the way there. But if they don't, if it's let's say, I just don't see what's going to bring the rates down if we don't have job losses and the economy and people's perception about their jobs stay good without unemployment rising. I don't see our rates getting better.
I'm going to put a think on that. I wish I had a go-to answer on that, but
all right, well, call me this afternoon. I want to know what your thoughts are.
I will. So, there's the next little piece of this. Check this out. This is really good. There's 3 different roads for the interest rates. Senior economist of real estate research, National Realtor, says in scenario number 1, golly, look at this. It's answer to your question. Unbelievable. Inflation continues to remain high, forcing the Fed to raise interest rates repeatedly. That means mortgage rates will keep climbing, possibly near 8.5%. Scenario number 2, the consumer price index responds more to the Fed's rate hikes, and there is a gradual deceleration of inflation, causing mortgage rates to stabilize near 7%. Stabilize. Interesting. In scenario 3, the Fed rates raise repeatedly to curb inflation and the economy falls into a recession. This could cause rates likely to drop to 5%. Well, there you go, Rodney.
So basically, this guy threw
Proven
out
what
almost
you.
every scenario that there was.
Yeah. Isn't that
I like
interesting? And you're right. It basically says what they're saying is the economy has to take a dump, not to be indelicate, in order for mortgage rates to get better. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I could see all three of those, any one of those scenarios happening. I'm not an economist, but every single time I've been in a downward rate environment, it seems like the government is using housing to help the economy.
Yeah. Yeah. I get, but this is I'm gonna bookmark this thing because it's got all the different scenarios, and all we can do is wait and watch and see what happens. Because the thing that gets to me is I used to think that there would be that the feds, and this isn't a shot, that they had this firm control on stuff. Well, I'm just learning that is just not the case. Where Powell is doing this stuff as a test to see if it works. Because when you see his interviews, they'll ask, "What do you think's going to happen to housing?" And he goes, "Yeah, I don't really know."
Right.
Great. Oh, super. that's enough to drive me nuts. What's Angie got here? There would need to be. I don't know if it's going to fit. Hang on. There would need to be high unemployment rate for a recession, which we don't have now. That's what she's chiming in on. She's really smart.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. I'm thinking that that if the government creates some unemployment by the continuous monetary policies of raising interest rates, they're going to create some unemployment, and then I think the rates will be artificially lowered again, and we'll start booming right back out of this and create another housing shortage or add on to our current housing shortage.
Yeah, right.
Which is better than where we are now. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's where I want to be.
The thing that's going to be interesting long term, I think, is the pent up demand for home sellers. That because that's what nobody's talking about. Well, I don't know that. That's a stupid thing to say. I haven't talked about that yet. Is that home sellers have had that lock in effect where rates are high enough? Is I own if I own my home at 2.5% or 3%, chances are pretty good I'm not going to jump out of that and go into a 7 and feel good about it unless I have to move, right?
Right.
But for sellers that have moving on in mind and they want to move anyway, as soon as things loosen up, price wise, interest wise, those sellers are going to start putting stuff on the market. So when we're talking about inventory, that'll help. And then we've got buyers that I'm telling you, we all have a short memory. It won't be too long to where a lot of us are saying, 4.5, that's not bad.
Right.
5% is not bad. It's not 7.
That's what we were saying exactly.
Earlier, Then all of a sudden the ball will get rolling, and like you said, like you started off with the show, we all get acclimated. Nothing's that bad. Nothing is that bad. I think the news makes it exponentially worse.
Yeah.
But it's just different. So like we were talking about before, new normal. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it says here the next question on this thing is oh my. Oh wow, did you see that? Angie's one of our regulars here, and she's really just a special one. Her husband had to lay off 48 guys in the last 5 weeks. That's substantial. So that's telling you that the Fed's having its effect, I guess, is probably what that means. I mean,
Yeah,
would
I'm
that be
Angie.
unfair?
Sorry about that. That had to be stressful for your husband. It's
Man,
I've had to lay a couple people off in my career, and it's terrible. I hate it.
mm, mm, that, yeah, that would be bad. Just a couple more thoughts. If you got time to stick around a couple more minutes for me?
Yes, sir.
Um, the next question they've got here, I think, is a good one. Is will housing sales decline? Will they? And this was published just a couple of days ago, so this isn't. It's the 24th. I think that there's no doubt that housing sales are going to continue to decline. It's at a 10-year low, which is substantial, and that's gonna continue to do that. What's going to happen to home values? I think, and Zillow just redid their projections and changed it by 0.1% instead of prices going up by 1.3 or one, it's 1.4. So I mean, it's basically flat. Home values are going to sit it's pretty stable here, increasing only 1 percentage point. There you go. There are going to be buyers that are waiting to get into the market until a level of comfort comes with that new normal. And that's what we've been talking about all along. Are you starting to see that? I bet you are. You're starting to see people to have the idea that, hey, it's this, but that's not so bad in terms of the rates.
Yes, I have. I had two different loan officer stories. One that he had been talking to several customers. He was just like, "Hey, man, I've talked to like 4 customers this weekend, and every single customer was on the same page as me about the rates. They're not great, but what do you do? You know, we just hope to get it at a lower, in the near future." And
Yeah.
then we had one guy buying an investment property at 9% with another loan officer, and I was like, "Wow, at 9%, like he says 9%, it may have been 8.5 or whatever it was, but it's a lot over 7, which is." I'm like, "Man, you really have to do your numbers on a rental right now to make sure the numbers work." So,
Yeah.
and
A
if
lot
this
of
guy wants this house and it just came up, he may have said he may be a long term investor. Say, "I don't care what it is. I'm gonna refi it when it comes around 6 months, 6 years, or wherever it is, and get the money right on it. It's the house that I want."
yeah.
So
Yeah. Now Angie has a good question that we have just got to answer on this. And it says, so since she'll be a seller and a buyer, what's the advantage, or will it even out? And the fact of the matter is, you're not going to be able to do much about the sales price. If it's, I understand we're not going to, I don't know where you are specifically, but I'm thinking close to the West Coast. Whatever the sales price is going to be, that's what it's going to be. Because the market is in such a way that pricing has become important. And that's why they're talking about across the country when they talk about prices dropping. In some cases, they do actually mean it, but mostly what they're talking about is initial listing price has gone down. There's lots of price reductions in order to get homes sold. There was an article I saw only a moment ago where days on market is double what it was just
right,
less than a year ago, double. And that means that houses are harder to sell. Here's my point. At some point when you're going to sell a house, you're going to figure out what the top line is going to be, what the best offer is going to be. There's nothing, and I'm getting ready. By the way, Angie, I did the video you asked for. I'm going to be publishing that soon, right after we get off the live stream today, on the 5 hacks for home sellers to get top dollar. And thank you for that request. But when you sell it, you're going to be limited as to what you can do. It's going to be the best dollar you can get. Now, when it comes to buying, because if I understand correctly, you're looking in different areas, meaning Nashville, Johnson City. You're looking all around the place. You've got a lot of flexibility on that. Let's just use Johnson City as an example. Johnson City is going to be a heck of a lot cheaper than Nashville. I'm reasonably certain. So
It will be.
the benefit is going to be you're going to have a ton of flexibility when you buy. Just that's the deal. But I have to get sellers to understand that if you're in the market these days, and people may not agree with me, but I know I'm right. When you're selling a house these days, you're going to get what you're going to get, or you're not going to sell. That's it. You know, a few months ago, you could hang out and get a higher dollar amount. You know, that it was a different world. It's not that way now. So that's it. I mean, I don't know if that
Can I
makes
say
sense
this?
or not.
Um,
Hit me.
I think that. Tell me how crazy I am, Andy. I think if you take somebody selling from, and I don't think Angie's in Temecula, but let's just say a city like Temecula, California. It's a good sized city, and moving to Johnson City or Chattanooga, or just outside of Johnson City and just outside of Chattanooga, I think you are trading apples for oranges, meaning that you're going to sell your house at a very high price per square foot in California. And especially if you just get outside, Sullivan County or whatever county Johnson City's in, you're going to be paying half of your square footage price, I bet. So I think you come out in a win-win that way. But if you're selling in a decent sized city in California and you're coming to Nashville and you buy, in one of the hot markets down here inside the city limits, you're going to be at a break even. You're selling from a high spot and you're going to be buying in a high spot.
Yeah.
I think the only time you break in I don't know how you do any better than break even, because when you sell in a high market, you've got to turn around and buy in a high market. It's not like,
Right.
unless you've buying from a family member or a neighbor that's giving you a crazy deal. Outside of that instance, you're always kind of going to be trading even if you're selling and buying at the same time. But like
Yeah.
Angie can do, you mentioned the flexibility. The flexibility going outside of a county that's not $500 or $600 a square foot is going to be her win.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of really my whole point. Because for years, California, I just love Californians, but they've had in general, and my answer in general was to not point out the California Tennessee difference when I was making that answer. But she did ask it. It was her that
Since I
asked.
did, since I did exactly that.
But for years, how long has it been? And it's still the case. Is what you're making is you can sell. I know this is an exaggeration, but in California, in some places, you could sell a bungalow for 1.6 or whatever the number is, and you come here in Brentwood and buy a really nice place for 750. So for cash,
Right.
if that's the situation you're in. So I've always loved, Californians have always had that benefit. There's probably other cities, but I'm just keenly aware of that California thing. But with what Angie's got going on, you're going to be okay, in my opinion. I don't know anything behind the scenes, but if you're like anybody I know that's come from out there, you can have your pick of the litter. I mean, most any place in Tennessee, other than maybe what is that in Memphis? That really nice place, Germantown.
Yeah.
Germantown and Green Hills might give you a run for your money. I don't know.
Yeah. Belmead, your lot costs are over $1 million probably in Belmead now for an acre or something. So it's, there's crazy spots down here too, but I'm betting if she goes from somewhere there, her price per square foot is going to drop dramatically.
Like through the floor. Yeah. Well, here's a last question that maybe we can handle, and is because I have some feelings about this. It says, sorry, I'm reading it and acting like everybody else should be able to see it. Will 2023 be a buyer's market or a seller's market? Here's my take on that. It's absolutely been the seller's market in every sense of the word for the last couple of years. That's no secret. But this last few months, we've seen days on market and inventory going from, in Brentwood, it was down to 2 weeks not so many months ago. 2 weeks was the inventory, the months inventory that was remaining. But now we're talking 12 weeks. And in general, in the Nashville area and across the country, we're seeing it's up to 3.2 months now. And
Wow.
what the professionals will tell you is 6 months is what they call a balanced market. It's neither a buyer's market or a seller's market. There's equal stress, and that homes are sold solely based on the condition of the house and like the location. There's no undue pressure on prices like scarcity or abundance. And we're getting closer and closer. Every time we get closer to 3 and 4 and 5 months, the price that's downward pressure on the home seller's price. So will it be a buyer's market and a seller market? I think it's still going to stay a seller's market, but not purely so. That's
Yeah. I think
right.
right now is a fair market for a buyer and a seller.
Yeah, it's
So
certainly more.
it's definitely shifting, right,
Yes,
to where you can get a fair deal.
absolutely. You can negotiate for less than asking price. And
Mhm.
yeah, see, Angie is saying the houses are on the market 3 weeks longer. Now that's a
Yeah.
big deal. 21 days is a big deal. So, so I think we're going to be all right, but I guess we had a couple of tasks that I got to think about. We're going to remember for next week. One was the buy rent calculator. Yes.
Yeah, we're going to do we'll get something together and put something together where you can see that buy rent thing.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying we'll have that for next time.
Okay. And then we did cover the 3 roads for the interest rates because that answered what I was really embarrassed to not be able to have a good answer. You were right. I was wrong.
Oh no, well yeah, that guy's like the weatherman. Look, I got
How are
a guest on my
you?
live YouTube channel.
Oh, are
Does
y'all
that
still
mean you
live?
got to
No, you're
go?
good.
I thought y'all were finished. I'm like,
Now the world sees her. All right. Was that Jay's mom?
I'm glad you called her Jay's mom. That's my boss. She's been the
Oh, but
backbone
that's
of
the way
Freedom Operations for 20 years.
I appreciate you. Hope you sell some houses this week.
I did. Yeah, we sold one Saturday. Got another one going Thursday. All right.
Is your
Well,
one
Rodney,
Saturday
hey,
a
thanks a
cash
lot.
deal?
Yeah. I want to thank Alicia and I want to thank Angie very much for joining us today. We really appreciate your participation, Angie, as always. And I'm going to have that video that you asked for, have that up for you in a couple hours. Any other final thoughts there, Rodney?
No, thanks. Good to see Angie and our new guest. Glad y'all are here.
All right. Listen, have a good day, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday. Thanks, Rodney.
You got it. See you, buddy.
Okay. Bye.